Major Richard Bong of Poplar, Wisconsin, who became the leading American ace with 40 combat victories.
Richard Bong is America's ace of aces. He is a local boy who was born right here in Superior, Wisconsin, grew up in Poplar, Wisconsin, spent most of his young life out there working on his family farm. From the time he broke the record till he was retired with 40 victories, he was never caught or passed and hasn't been yet to this day either. And the way they fight wars now, he probably won't ever be passed. Calvin Coolidge is the person responsible for aspiring Major Bong to become the ace of aces. He wanted to fish on the Brule River, so he set up a summer White House here in Superior, and while he was here at that time, technology as it was, he had to have his mail flown into him daily. And the route of that military plane that flew his mail into him each day went right over the Bong family farm. So in the morning it would come over with the delivery, and a few hours later it would go back out with anything he had sent back out. Richard, every day for the 2 or 3 weeks that was happening, he would hop out, he would watch that plane. According to his sisters, that inspired him. He knew from that point on he wanted to spend his life in the sky, and he wanted to be a part of that. That was kind of who he was.
On the afternoon of December 12, 1944, in front of a guard of honor consisting of 12 pilots, each of whom had 12 or more air combat victories, General Douglas MacArthur pinned the coveted Medal of Honor on Major Richard Bong. The citation read in part as follows.
I'm a veteran of the United States Army. I served with the 101st Airborne Division, infantry in 1968 and 1969. After I retired in 2013, I decided to look for something to do. So I stopped by one day and asked, what about volunteering here? It becomes a social bond, as it does with any organization that you're with, and it's a close-knit group here, both the staff and the many, many volunteers we have here.
Veteran volunteers are pretty much the lifeblood of the Bong Center. We really couldn't get the job done without them. They're an amazing help to us, and the connection that they have with the story and with their service, and the fact that we honor the service of all veterans here, they just melt right into discussions and comparing back and forth. You know, when I was in Vietnam, or when I was, serving in the Cold War, this and that. This is a place where we honor those stories.
Well, folks, it's a very happy day for me to be back here on this Mother's Day, be along with my mother and the mothers of these 2 other boys. And it'll be a much better day all around when we can get all the mothers of all the boys back together again when this thing is over.
Sometimes we'll have veterans come in. As much as we might be telling them about the museum, very often we're just listening to them. Very often they will see something here that will remind them of their service, and then we just listen to their story. Very, very often, when the veterans come in here, it's the first time maybe they have talked at length about their service. Lots of times they'll speak a minute or two to somebody, and when they come here, they can talk for as long as they want. In fact, we do an oral history program. We're associated with the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., and what we offer is an opportunity for a veteran to sit down with another veteran and tell their story. And very often these will go on for an hour or 2. Some of the displays you see here in the museum, in fact, are pictures of local veterans and showing part of their story as well. There's different chapters in the United States of the Commemorative Air Force. They will take vintage aircraft, and their mission is to restore them to flying condition. The stuff that they're doing is really very exciting. They'll explain how they had to rebuild the thing from scratch, this certain aspect of the airplane, and it can be a long-term project. And it's different from plane to plane to plane.
When he came home on his first leave, he basically had no intentions other than just to do some hunting and eat some of his mom's cooking and do the obligated press appearances that the military wanted him to help raise money for the war efforts. As the story goes, I guess, when they were eating at a restaurant, he was with his friends, and Marge happened to come into the restaurant, and he invited her over the table, and they had a nice conversation. His sister questioned him, I guess, why he didn't ask her out on a date. And I guess he just didn't have the guts at that time, but apparently it takes a little more than just being the leading ace of aces in the nation to have enough courage to ask her out on a date. But eventually they started making appearances, crowds followed, the press followed, and they picked up on this relationship, and they kind of became America's sweethearts. People have a lot of questions on Marge's life and her role in developing the museum and getting the museum itself built. It was quite impressive, and her drive to see that the plane gets taken care of and made sure that there was a housing for it, but not just for Richard, but for all people who have served, and that came right from Marge.
Major Richard Bong, representative of the highest type of young Americans who served their country.
Richard Bong is one of the few people of this area who rose from pretty humble beginnings to become one of the most famous people in the nation at his time. He's the classic story of local boy does good. When you go down in history, it's his name that's right on top. If he could come out of the Depression era and be a self-made pilot and become the nation's ace of aces, anybody can do just about anything if you set your goals and you follow through.